Now then, people, welcome back to the Just Joe Football Show, and it is time for the midweek fix. I haven't done one of these for quite some time. Lucy's normally with me, but she's got other stuff going on. So yeah, I replaced her with three beautiful looking men. I don't know what happened there. I got a bit of feedback, so I had to stop there for a second. 1 second, let me stop that. There we go. So I probably have the smartest man in the Leeds United fandom in John McKenzie from All Stars, aren't we? Yeah, yeah, I would say so. The funniest man in Rob Mulholland.
That's definitely me, right?
Yeah, this is true. And we have a Leeds United author, so I feel like I'm in very, very esteemed company, to be fair, and then just myself. But before we get into it, I wanted to have a chat with Rocco, because obviously I did a bit of homework before, and I had a look at this book. So it's Marcelo Bielsa versus the Damned United, The Extraordinary Story of a Club Reborn, which the title itself, I'm already right. I'm going to have to buy this book now, to be fair. But there's a little synopsis on it about the author. And it said, Rocco began to document Marcelo Bielsa's reign in spring 2019 when he found out he was becoming a father, so that his son, and this is my favourite bit, Alessandro Marcelo, could know the extraordinary story of a club reborn. So I just wanted you to tell us about the book, first of all, and the fact that you've named your son after the man that is Marcelo Bielsa.
Yes, well, he is obviously a shining example to us all, so it was an easy decision. I wanted it to be Marcelo Alessandro, but my wife wouldn't let me go that far, so I had to settle for Alessandro Marcelo.
You've done well getting it in as a middle name. I don't even have kids, and the missus has already vetoed that.
It's the story of the 2 seasons leading up to promotion, which started writing that first season. It was after the Millwall game when Hernandez turned the game round on his own. That started documenting it because I wanted him to know. I wanted to sort of not forget myself either, and also for my own enjoyment. And then it turned into a full-blown book with a happy ending. Would you believe?
Yeah, it's brilliant, man. It is brilliant, that, and I will definitely pick it up. And what I have done for the guests that are on, obviously their channels. So we've got Rob. Oh, is it FC Mulholland now, Rob? You've got 2, haven't you?
Yeah, FC Mulholland's the football one. So everyone watching this, that's the one they should check out. FC Mulholland. Check out the Ellen Road Roundup, my weekly comedy look back at Leeds news.
Yeah, which is brilliant. Like my partner's not that into it, but whenever I've got it on, she's always like, "Oh, he's so funny." So yeah, she's got good taste. Yeah, she has. And do check out your other channel as well, because that's
just all comedy and stuff, like, general comedy that isn't Leeds based. But for the people watching this, they'll want the FC Mulholland one.
Yeah, definitely. And then John as well, All Stats and We. I've stuck the details in there, more specifically the Patreon. Is that how you say it? Patreon? I'm not too sure.
Patreon.
Patreon. Yeah, Patreon. Yeah. I'm not up with all that stuff. Someone actually messaged me the other day asking if I had Discord, and I went, I don't even know what it is. And he went, it's all right,
okay, fancy WhatsApp.
Is that what it is? Right.
Sort of.
Join our Discord, and I've still not set one up. So I was like, I'll get round to it at some point. But John, All Stats Aren't We? It's the place to be, isn't it, mate? For all Leeds United content after the match.
Yeah, if you want bringing down to earth with a bump, that's the place for you to head. We look at the stats and the tactics, and we try and keep everyone's expectations in check. But when we're doing badly, we usually pull people up and say, come on, it's not as bad as you think. Yeah. So it goes both ways. Yeah,
it's true. It is true, to be fair. Like, when we, even after West Ham and stuff, when you listen and it's like, no, we were amazing. Why are you doing this to me? Like, what are you talking about? But you're right. It is very, I don't know, it makes you sit back and think, actually, yeah. But let's start with that then. Obviously, on the back of a loss against Newcastle, which for me, it sounds mad, but I was more annoyed than I was after the drubbing by Manchester City. And I know we were hammered 7. I don't know if it was because I was at Ellen Road and I wasn't at the game. I don't know, but I came out of Ellen Road so frustrated, so annoyed, because I look at Newcastle and I think it's the fact that both fixtures, we only took a point from it. And I look at them and think they are so bad. And when I take into consideration, obviously, we get 6 points from from Burnley and West Ham. And for me, other than Norwich, Newcastle's the perfect team for us to play. And then for us to get beat in the manner that we did was really frustrating. But Rob, do you want to give us your overriding thoughts on Newcastle?
Yeah, I was at the match and yeah, it was frustrating, definitely. Yeah. Like, I've had a bit of time to reflect on it now. I've watched it again for making a video on it, and it wasn't as bad as we all think. I don't think is how I see it. Like, I think it's one of the worst, probably the worst result we've had all season. But in terms of performance, I don't think it's anywhere near. I think we're actually, for long periods of it, pretty good. Just poor finishing, being let down by that again. And, it was a spawny goal that beat us. It wasn't like we got battered by them. It wasn't like Southampton away where we were just terrible and never in the game, And again, I was more annoyed than City. I agree with you on that. Because I was like, we got twatted by City. Teams get twatted by City. Yeah. Newcastle, we were looking at that. But, I don't know. I had the... going into it, I was like, we've won 2 on the bounce and we're playing a crap team at home with Defo going to lose.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've watched enough Leeds United, mate, to know that we were losing that game.
It's funny you say that, because I seen Michael Normanton, I seen Gary from Talking Short, and I was talking and I was like, nah, honestly, nothing to worry about. These are pony. We will beat them. And to be fair, I'm not so sure. But someone said to me in the ground, I remember Wigan in the Championship, and I was saying, like, they've not won away all season. We'll definitely beat them. And someone actually said to me, he said, you're giving me Wigan vibes, Joe. And obviously it proved to be the case. But I was convinced we were going to beat them, John, because I just look at Newcastle and think they're terrible. But
yeah, this is one of the worst halves of football, I think, in the first half, in terms of what the opposition did. They basically opened the door for us and said, come right in, and we tripped up on the doorstep and fell face forward and did nothing. I think in the second half, it was much more balanced, and they changed things around, and they did things that made our lives harder, and they did the sorts of things that made our life harder that have happened all season. And so it shouldn't be that surprising that we struggled to get a goal when we were a goal down. But in that first half in particular, I've just never seen a team play so tactically badly against us and us not really capitalize on it. So I think that's the disappointing thing for me. And I think this season's really tough. I mean, it's interesting hearing you guys talking about how you have that run of games, Burnley, West Ham and Newcastle. And the funny thing this season is, it's been the sense that I've got is that fans are like, oh, we could just need a little run of form to get things back to where they were last season, and it's just not happening. And I think that it's the really interesting thing about us is that there's certain things that there's certain games we can go into and we can look absolutely brilliant and we don't expect to, and we can go into other games and look awful. You mentioned the Southampton game, Rob. We were really rubbish in that game, and you just don't expect. We made Southampton look like Man City against us. They controlled the ball really well, they pressed us really well, and they created enough chances to score loads. Norwich was the same. We didn't look particularly great in the Norwich game, and then you have the game like the West Ham game, where you go into that game thinking, okay, we've had these games against David Moyes' West Ham where it's been a lot closer than the results have suggested. But mate, we the week before we lost quite comfortably and considerably as well. And so it's just the weird thing with us is that I think that because we're so used to watching other teams play where generally they get their edge through having higher quality, creative, attacking players, we don't do that. We try and do that through chaos, through destabilization and stuff. And it means that some teams we're going to look okay against for no reason other than they can't deal with the chaos that we create. And so it just means that we're in this sort of situation this season where you just don't really know what to expect going into each game. There can be games where we will go a goal ahead like we did against West Ham, and then we can just constantly peg them back. There'll be other games where we go down a goal down to Newcastle and we just can't get back into the game. So it's just, I think, part and parcel of Bielsa ball in this season at the moment. That's just the way things are, the way that the chips have dropped. And it's just hard work, especially when, like for us, we're running a channel where we're trying to look at the stats and the tactics and try and find some kind of meaning in the madness. And it's been pretty tough to do this season.
Yeah, try making people laugh about it, mate. Jesus.
It's good. Do you know what? When we get losses, my numbers are massively down on when we win, and it sort of gives me happiness that I'm not with that Arsenal fan TV kind of vibe, because normally if you lose, they come to you when you lose because they can see you booting off. So it does give me, hammers me. But if we win, obviously my numbers are up, so we need to win more games for sure. But John, it's interesting you say that about the topsy-turvy nature of this season, because I was of the thinking prior to Newcastle, we beat Newcastle, we move above Everton and Brentford. This is my thinking pre-match, and I'm thinking, right, we can start to look up now. And then we lose, and then I'm sort of like resigned to the fact that, okay, actually, we're not going to hit this run of form. It literally is going to be up and down, up and down. And I think, I don't know how you feel, Rocco, come the end of the season, it'll be one of them. We'll get to game 38 and think, that was minging. Like we're just glad it's over. We've stayed in the division, and then let's, build in the summer. Is that where your head's at, Rocco, or do you think we can hit a vein of form and start to climb?
Yeah, no, I think that pretty much hits the nail on the head for me. I mean, that's the way I'm at least trying to look at that Newcastle game. I mean, it's obviously really frustrating that we didn't beat them because, we were the better team, or, we should have blown them away. But I do think it is just one of those. And to be fair, like, we've not really had one of those games for quite a long time, where we've been all over a team, not been able to score, and then they've hit us on the sucker punch. I mean, at home this season, we've pretty much done our job. We've been obviously beaten soundly by Liverpool, but all in all, I think the away form is where we've struggled. And come the end of the season, I am confident that we'll look at Newcastle and just think, that was crap, wasn't it? But I really don't think it'll matter. And I'm confident that we'll finish probably upper bottom half, as we probably would have done. We were bottom half all of last season up until that brilliant run at the end. So I think people need to sort of remember that as well. Last season wasn't sunshine and flowers all the way through. We've got
a lot of rose tinted glasses, haven't we?
yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, it was behind closed doors, and everyone was safe, apart from, the four teams at the bottom. So, probably a lot of teams switched off for those last few games. Maybe I'm doing us a disservice. But yeah, I just think it's where we're at. And yeah, this season's been more difficult, but I think we just all need to just sort of enjoy the ride, because, it's not like we're 18th, 19th and panicking. We don't need to panic.
Yeah, it's not Sheffield United's second season in the league, is it? It's not, then there have been highlights this season. There have been some amazing times, especially Ellen Road, but it's been a slog. And I think if we can, you are right with, Joe saying we haven't been able to get a run of form and everything. We haven't been able to get that going. We haven't had any consistency in the team for any period of time. How often have we ever played 3 games in a row with the same team this season? Never close to it. We've had huge changes constantly, and these things happen in football. You have to manage them, whatever. But we have been extraordinarily unlucky with that, and we're continuing to be. So it's hard for them to find consistency, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree completely. I do. Just to come back to the point you were making, John, about the Newcastle game. I remember being in the ground and 15 minutes, because I said to my pal who I go with, I thought Trippier were good. He's nowhere, and obviously that was a tactical thing. Like you said, I don't see it from that angle. I just see Trippier nowhere near Harrison and thinking, this guy's rubbish. I thought he was decent, and my pal would go, yes. He's an England right back, man. Where is he? Do you know what I mean? And then obviously there was that tactical tweak, but we the way we lost the game for me, and I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. It was missing a number 9. That's the way I see it. I think, especially in that first half down that right hand side, there was nothing more I felt Rafinha could have done other than pass the ball, stop time, go to the opposite end of the pass and put it in himself, because he just kept putting it across. And I don't know, I felt like there was one moment where he tried to cut it back for Dan James, and I'm thinking, if that's a striker, if that's Bamford, he stands still probably. Thinks, if I stand here, there's a big chance this is coming to me. And Dan James is just, he's all over the shop, a bit like a headless chicken at times. And I that's just from my view, why we lost that game, and that's why I think there was such a big clamouring for Joffy. I said it at halftime myself to my pals, and I think we'll talk about the substitution a little bit later on, and Robert's coming before him. That's just how I seen it, John. Is that what you put it down to, or
in terms of the fact that we didn't have a proper out and out 9 as as an option there. Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because if you look back through the game, like Rob said, when you rewatch the game, you always get a different picture from what you see during the game. And I was at the game. I was in the East Stand Upper, the least popular place to sit, but the best view in the stadium. And I was sat up there, and I was sat next to Darren Driver, and we were just talking about how much space that they were affording us. They played a really, really narrow back four. So the back four were not often going wider than the width of the penalty area, and that's fine. Like you can do that. Going compact as a back four is a perfectly fine thing to do. What you're doing is you're stopping people from coming through the middle, and you're closing down the space. But what you are doing is you're opening up those wide areas and saying, here you go, have a go. Your wide players can get into those areas and attack. And what you do if you do that is that you have to make sure that you're making it as hard as possible for the opposition to get the ball into those wide areas. And they just weren't doing that at all. So in the first half, it was just wide open, like balls going into those channels. There was a ball from Dallas, which everyone loved, but it was one of those ones where he had so much space to aim at that he could just boom it into that channel anywhere, and Rafinha was going to get to it somehow. And I think for me, like that, when you have that sort of option, yeah, you're going to generate really dangerous chances, and that's what we did. I mean, you've mentioned Rafinha just hitting the byline, and Josh Hobbs wrote a piece for us actually last week, just saying if we can get Rafinha into the same areas that we got him in against West Ham, we're going to be fine. And then in the next game, we got Rafinha in the same areas we got him against West Ham, and we were not fine. So there's clearly something going on there. I think that obviously, like, not playing a striker is an issue. You want a striker to play there, and Dan James is not giving a great impression of what a striker should be doing. So that's definitely an issue. The other thing that I think maybe mention is like issues with tempo. I think this season we talk about tempo a lot on our channel because it feels as though everything is quite rushed. And we've had a lot of people talking and always asking us about, why is it that always our decision making seems really poor? And I sometimes wonder if the part of the issue is that we're just getting into attacking situations too quickly, so that the rest of the team can't get into the right areas. But to be honest, I don't really think that was much of an issue at the weekend. On my rewatch, just having a look at some of the movements that are being done. People use this about Rodrigo as well, but I thought he ran the channels into the box quite well too. So yeah, I think it's definitely a striker issue, and I think having Joffrey on earlier would have made a big difference. In the first half, I think Joffrey makes hay. Equally, it is worth saying that we didn't generate a lot of actual chances. Obviously, there's the two Dan James chances that just look absolutely awful when you're watching it live. But looking back at some of the underlying numbers, like the XG was pretty balanced between the two teams, and we didn't create as much as I thought that we had when I was in the stadium. So there's definitely other issues as well in terms of chance creation. Some of that is to do with like movement in the box as well. But I don't know if you guys have got any thoughts on other issues in terms of trying to get the ball in the back of the net, which is at the end of the day what we're trying to do, right?
Well, I thought it was there was quite a few times where Rafinha squared it to basically no one, and that felt like a missing Bamford. You know, like he feels like Bamford basically feels like the only player we have who just drives towards goal and just gets in the centre of the box and gets into good goal scoring positions because, you know, like everyone else isn't quite a striker. Like Rodrigo's halfway between a 10 and a 9. Like Joffrey seems like he wants to drop deeper as well sometimes. I don't know. I've not seen enough of him to fully analyse that. But like, obviously he's got a bit more of that directness. But like Bamford just is that, you know, when we're whipping balls across the box, we're putting a couple of great crosses with no one there or Dan James there. And if a ball's in the air, like I love Dan James's effort and work rate, and I think he will be a very good player for us. But he's not a big hard centre forward who's going to nod it in, is he? So it's felt like
hold-up play as well.
What's that?
His hold-up play, just unable to hold up the ball. And there's so many times when we're playing the ball into the feet of who we expect to be Bamford, and he's just getting stepped in front of by centre-backs, and he's just not strong enough to stand up to them, which is, again, like you say, it's not his job. It's not what he's expected to do.
Yeah, I think he covers Bamford's defensive work brilliantly, and I think that's why Bielsa loves him. Like, he does that part of it so well. His pressing's excellent. Like, you know, he's a constant threat, and I thought we got worse when he went off. But the problem is, you know, in the other phase of play, when we're attacking, when the ball drops to him, you don't exactly think it's going to, hello. But like, you know,
smashing the gaffle.
Yeah, but like, you know,
when the ball drops to him in the box, it's not like, you know, he scuffs it a lot of the time. He's not got that poacher instinct, does he? Because he's a winger, you know.
This I was going to say.
To be fair, I think.
Go on, Rocco. Go on, mate.
No, I was just going to say, and I guess we'd come on to him anyway, but like Roberts is probably a bit unfortunate not to be starting up front, because he was playing well actually in that period before Christmas as the striker, and obviously he wants to play Rodrigo in that number 10 role, and he wants to give him a run of games there, and let's all see if he really is good enough. I mean, he's not showing enough signs, but yeah, to say that James has come in and is a full blown winger, everybody knows that, and to see him starting ahead of Roberts when he had done pretty well. He'd only scored 1 goal, but I think everyone agreed that he was leading the line pretty well. That's a bit surprising to me. I think it's maybe a little bit unfair on Roberts. Not that he's covered himself in glory since, but yeah, playing up front, he was doing a fairly decent job. And if you got Roberts up front with Gelhardt to come on, I'd much rather see that than just having James up front. Even though I thought the first chance in the first half was actually a good save. If Meslier makes that save, we're all just singing Melier's praises. So, but yeah, the second half was a bit more typical of James. He fluffed his lines and he does that quite a bit. But yeah, maybe a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I think the Dan James thing, like against West Ham, we win the game. Obviously, he misses that chance to make it 3-1, but he's pressing, he's causing Fabianski all sorts of problems, and you can let it slide because you're like, yeah, but he did everything, like you said, Rob, about, from a pressing standpoint, everything fine. We win the game, it's okay. But then when he's relied upon to take them 1 or 2 chances, that's where it falls off, and it looks like he's had a really poor performance. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense, like
the most visible moments of the game look bad, definitely.
Yeah.
But I feel like Tyler Roberts had a sort of similar issue when he was playing up front, in that he was leading the line really well and pressing very well, but again without the end product. It feels like that he's physically bigger, he's got more strength to him, that sort of thing. But I thought it was a similar sort of issue we were having with him there.
Just obviously we'll move on to Roberts because he's naturally not well. Twitter, this is the thing, right? You can fall into the trap of thinking that Twitter is the fan base, and it is not, right?
No, it's just the grumpiest, angriest bit of the fan base.
This is true. This is something I've learned over time, is that actually, it's not real. It's not real. This isn't like 100%. You don't go to Ellen Road, then everyone's going to be, you're a knob off YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, otherwise I would just get rid of my season ticket, to be fair. I couldn't deal with that. But yeah, obviously Roberts. I mean, I can't lie. Like, in the ground, I was fuming. Like, I was frustrated when he brought him on over Gelhardt. And there's maybe something in the fact that afterwards, I think Bielsa said, maybe I've misinterpreted it, but he said, he was the substitution for James. James was on a yellow. And then it made me think, okay, so these pre-planned subs, was he always going to be this sub for James regardless of what happened? Was Joffrey never going to be in the conversation, which for me is something where Bielsa really should tweak it, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Is there not a case though with Joffrey that it might have been protecting him because he's coming back from an injury? I felt like that might be a thing. Also, I feel like Bielsa's a little cautious with him because he knows how much we all expect from him, and he's 19, and there is a lot of pressure on the young lad. So I feel like there is a little bit of protecting him going on. Like, I was like, get Joffrey on. We're all dead excited by him, but I'm trying to find Bielsa's reasoning in it. That was what it said to me, that maybe he wasn't quite 100% there, and he was hoping he didn't have to play him in that game.
Yeah. But then Roberts does come on and he makes the error. He had a chance to release the ball a couple of times. And I think it's Manquillo goes down the other end. And there is a number of phases of play after that fact. Meslier, it was terrible. Like, in the ground, I thought it took a deflection. When I'd seen it back, like, on the drive home, I was like, how has that gone in there? And obviously, Llorente as well for the challenge, which was a bit needless.
At the time, I thought it was a good challenge. I thought it was a good yellow to take. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a good challenge. Obviously, it was a foul.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, he looked clean through. Like, looking on the replay, it looks like Struijk might get there, but in the ground, I just didn't think he had a chance. I thought he was clean through. So I don't know. I was with Llorente on that one.
Yeah, so I guess my point is are the fan base being harsh on Roberts, or is he? Well, is he to blame? There was a little part of me going, it's all your fault, Tyler. I'm sorry. And I do try back him, right? And one of my pals who I go with, he can't stand him, but he'll always back him when he's in the ground. He's not like griefing him or out like that. He just, when he sees him come on, he goes, do you know what I mean? It is what it is. And I think he's got to that stage. But yeah, I do feel he was a little bit at fault, and I feel a bit harsh saying it.
I've been a big Tyler Roberts defender. I will happily admit that was one of the worst 20 minutes I've seen him play. It wasn't good, But the flip side of that is, like we were saying, the previous 4 games, he'd had brilliant performances before he got a knock and got out. He genuinely played really, really well. And I don't know, I feel for Tyler Roberts because he's become the lightning rod for it. So whenever he has a bad performance, everyone blows it up. And then whenever he has a few good performances, it's sort of grudgingly accepted, I don't know if he's ever... Look, I don't think he's going to be a world beater. I don't think he's going to win a Ballon d'Or anytime soon. But there is clearly a player in there. But it's just a case of whether this relationship with the fans gets worse and worse and it becomes a negative thing for everyone. I like the lad and I hope he does well, and Bielsa clearly does, and that's kind of good enough for me. But yeah, it's not like, it's a weird situation at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. John, what are your thoughts? Because where do we go with it? Because I do agree with, sometimes it could possibly get a bit toxic. I genuinely think it could go that way with Tyler, which is so disappointing because he's only a young lad and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But emotions are high when it comes to football, isn't it? But where do you think we go?
I mean, I think it has become toxic. I think it's impossible to have sensible conversations about Tyler Roberts. And believe you me, we've tried on our channel to talk about him in sensible ways, and it just doesn't go down well, which is fair enough. Like people are welcome to make their own mind up about a player, but I think for us the problem is that I think he's judged unfairly. This is a player who was brought in for £1 million or whatever it was, £2 million as a youth player to bolster our squad, and we now have a squad that is just completely decimated. And this is, as you've said, a young player who then is being brought in. Sometimes he's being brought in one position, sometimes he's being brought in another position. The game at the weekend, he was brought in one position and then moved to another position 10 minutes later, which is, I think, another frustration for a lot of fans, because you kind of think, well, what benefit did we get from having Tyler Roberts up front for a bit and then Tyler Roberts in midfield for a bit, and what benefit does he get from that? So the contextual side of things, I think you've got to accept that caveat that this is a guy who's not getting a huge amount of game time, and it's often game time that is unideal for him, and he's got to try and prove himself in that short period whenever he's on. And again, he's expected to do different positions in different situations. So there's that context entirely. I think people can complain about him and say this guy isn't good enough for us to be playing him in the Premier League. But I think, again, that there's just sort of some sense that he's just intrinsically not good enough. And I think the point is that usually when you bring in a player like that, you're trying to get them into a situation where you can work out whether or not they are intrinsically good enough, rather than what he's had to do, which is prove that he's intrinsically good enough from day one. And people have made the decision that a young player just thrown in at the deep end in the Premier League just isn't good enough. And therefore they get sort of affronted by the fact that he's playing. As for the game of the weekend, yeah, okay, I agree with Rob. I think that was one of the worst 20 minutes he's had. But at the same time, I think the people who are blaming him for us losing that game are wrong as well. I don't think we lost that game because of Tyler Roberts. I think we lost that game because we didn't finish our chances in the first half, and we didn't generate any decent chances in the second half, really, beyond the one Dan James chance, which, I think was largely a fluke created chance anyway, because it bounced off a defender's heel and bounced to the back post. So the issue for me was not taking chances in the first half and not generating chances in the second half. So I think the problem is that I think with the debates on Tyler, it all becomes about an unfair context within which the debate's taking place. And I think if you step back and say, is he a good enough player to be playing as a squad player, as a young player in the Premier League? I think, yeah, he is. And you leave it at that. And that doesn't mean to say that I think that he'll ever get to the point, as Rob said as well, that he's suddenly going to be a great baller at the Premier League level. But we don't just need great ballers at Premier League level. We need players who are going to be functional, who are going to be able to come on and help us out when we need to. And I think he's probably just another victim of those circumstances that we've had with the squad just sort of being run into the ground. So yeah, how do we solve it? I think probably like you're suggesting, it's probably just getting to a point now where he just has to move on and try and make a career of it somewhere else, because it has got to this point now where I think the fans just can't look at it in a sort of neutral way. And I guess that's part and parcel of what being a fan is like. But I think it's got to a point now where he will be better off just maybe doing a loan somewhere, maybe moving on at the end of that loan. But I just think he just gets so much grief at Leeds that it's putting him under pressure. It's winding the fans up, and we need a central midfielder. So let's bring in a central midfielder so it solves all of those problems, right?
Yeah, definitely. People forget. Go on, Rob.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, like you said, if we take our chance in the first half with 3 up and no one's talking about Tyler Roberts, it's a totally different situation. Anyway.
It's mad as well because when Tyler Roberts is almost the elder statesman within that bench as well, and he's so young himself. Do you know what I mean? Though, like,
well, that's because everyone else is a child.
Yeah, when they're warming up, genuinely, before the match, like he is almost like experienced compared to them, if you know what I mean. And it's mad because people do forget how young he is. But yeah, I mean, it can't be good for him because I know some might be in a position where they don't check social media and stuff, but I don't know. I think the younger generation,
even if you try not to, it sort of gets back to you. You know, and sort of like he's going to see some of it. There's a lot of people giving him a lot of grief. Some of it's going to get to him.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying he's a good player. I think it's worth saying he's a good player as well. There's certain things that he does that a lot of people in our team can't do, particularly in terms of like dynamic ball carrying stuff. So
I really like him the time in the midfield, ball and driving forwards. He's always on the turn, always looking to go forwards when he receives it. And I think he's great at that.
It's just the final pass sometimes isn't there. Sometimes the shots look a bit weak, and that's what people are going to judge him on at the end of the day. And there comes a point where you have to be judged for that, because it's all well and good being able to just dynamically carry the ball through the midfield, but you've got to be able to do something with it at the end of that.
He has played 100 games for us as well. Like he is only 23. He is a young lad, but he has played a lot of games now, and it hasn't quite stuck yet. Yeah, but he is like the thing is like the thing I hate seeing is when I've seen some people being like, oh, he's stealing a living, all this sort of stuff. Like there is no one at Leeds United who is not trying 100% right now. I will guarantee that. Like there has never been a time at this club where everyone has been trying harder, and like Tyler Roberts definitely included. So you can get that off it. Like there's not a lack of effort from anyone.
Yeah,
I think I've heard some of the players describe him as being the most technically talented player in the squad as well, which I think is worth something. Like in training, there's obviously like positive mentions about Joffrey being one of the youngsters who has like the technical levels to really succeed, but a lot of them do talk about Tyler Roberts as well, and I think that counts for something. That's why Bielsa, I think, is persisting with him, because he sees that in training, and it is a good level, and we don't have a lot of players who actually on the ball are technically great. So
Well, have you got any thoughts, Rocco?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like in terms of Bielsa picking him and keeping him quite high up in the rank. I mean, it's probably it is speculative, but we don't see what goes on in training and behind closed doors. And Bielsa, these running stats and how fit Leeds' players are. I'm a big believer that doesn't just happen because Bielsa wants it to. It's because he sets these standards and he picks players on, their performances in murder ball and how they carry themselves, how they keep themselves fit, how hard they work. So, if it's a case of Roberts getting picked because he works so hard and because he's such a fantastic example to the rest of the squad, there is value in that as well. I mean, a lot of people probably might disagree with that, but, I do feel like that's part of Bielsa's whole thing. That is he keeps the players' trust in that way as well. He keeps everyone working as hard as they possibly can by giving the players the chances that deserve the chances, that earn the chances. And, you've heard him say before, as long as Roberts wants to stay, there's a place for him. Well, yeah, that does suggest that he's one of the hardest working players. So, yeah, it's just a thought, really.
No, you're right. Like, Bielsa's not mad, is he? Like, he knows, he observes football.
Are you sure?
Not in that way. He is, but not in that way. When when it comes to like analysing footballers, I trust him on that. He's not picking him because he's shit. There is a reason behind it, and we might not quite understand it because he's on this Bielsa wavelength. But like whenever Bielsa makes a decision, I always try and look for the reason behind it, because there is reason. He doesn't really do anything off emotion. It doesn't feel like it's all planned and logical, and So he's got to be doing something, hasn't he?
The line we always hear is, trust in Bielsa. Whenever we say anything on our channel, they're like, well, Bielsa knows better. And if that goes both ways, right? If there's certain things that you like that he says, exactly, that it works with the players that you don't like as well as the ones that you do like. So
yeah,
so true. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And I do tend to agree with you, John. I think maybe it's probably time. Not now, obviously we can't afford to be losing any players now, to be fair, but I do think there will come a point where we say, yeah, let's cut ties. I think anyway, but we'll have to wait and see. But while we're on that, let's talk a little bit about transfers or Leeds inactivity in the window. What does frustrate me, I do get a few messages, look at this club, look at that club, and we get a lot of. I remember being compared to Villa and to look at them and Newcastle. I'm like, yeah, but they've got crazy money. You have to take all these factors into account. Like Villa, for example, they just got a new manager as well. So it's like they're then backing Stevie Gerrard, so they're then going to have to put money in. So there's all these different factors, but it's looking more likely that this Aronson deal isn't going to happen. I think the frustrating thing for me is, I said this to whether or not we were actually ever properly in for De Paul or Mateus Cunha, what happens is we never get them. And then in the summer, they go to a top club because they've just absolutely smashed it between then and the next window. And I am a little bit worried that might happen with Aronson. But yeah.
Does that not show you something good about our scouting, though?
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing them a little bit early. Even if we're not getting them, we're trying at a point when they're actually available, So I'm looking for a positive.
But does it even matter? I want to know, right? Does it even matter? Because I did fall into that trap. I think Josh Hobbs made this point or it might have been Tom Wilson, I think maybe, that we have some positive results and fans fall into the trap. And I'm one of them, like I am genuine. I'm like, right, well, we don't need any players. Let's just get to the summer. We'll be all right. And then we lose a game and I'm like, we need some players. Do you know what I mean? I'm so reactionary. It's just, I'll only ever be honest. But the thing that concerns me, if we don't do anything now, which I do think will be fine come the end of the season, I do think we'll stay up. But then we run the risk of more upheaval in the summer, which could have a more negative effect because we've got a lot of players that come into the end of the tenure. You then have to get loads of players in at once, and that could cause more issues than it's worth. So maybe it's counterproductive to do that and maybe just getting one or two if we can. So then it softens the blow when we have to fully change the squad. I know there's loads in that, but loads for you to answer there. But who wants to start on Aronson, transfer policy, everything?
I don't know. I'm of the opinion that I'd rather have no one than someone who doesn't fit. I'm still shaken by John Kevin Augustine. I don't want another one of those. I think it's really hard for us to buy players, especially in January, because our list of requirements is so long and the type of player we want is so precise. We've got to find someone who will run their ass off, totally fit whatever tactical specifications Bielsa has, and is available, that the club will let go, that wants the move. There's so many complicated pieces that it might be hard to get them done now. I'll judge the transfer window when it's done. A lot of things happen right at the end. But yeah, I'd rather have no one than someone who doesn't work, because they don't just stick around for the next couple of months. They're going to be in the squad forever. But I'm the same as everyone. I would really very much like one or two to come in. But if they don't, again, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
I'm on that page, but I'm probably one step down. Actually, I'm really not bothered. If we don't sign anyone, I think it's fine. I'm completely comfortable with the squad, and maybe I've got too much trust in Bielsa, but I just think we'll be fine, and the players will come back. I do. I think the squad's decent. I've got 18 good players, senior players, and obviously the injuries have been horrendous. But we've still been doing all right. We've still been ticking over. So, the players come back. We've got the youngsters behind them. Yeah, I'd like Aronson, because if the club think he's good enough, then fantastic. And if we get him, then great. But I certainly wouldn't be panicking. And, it does baffle me when people ask for a striker. I feel that's really strange. And also that whole phrase of just a striker, you hear it on Sky Sports News all the time. Oh, this club wants a striker. they don't grow on trees, you know.
Especially not Bielsa strikers.
No, exactly. Yeah. So it's almost unrealistic to even ask for for something like that. But yeah, I'm completely at ease. So my opinion on it's completely boring. So you better off.
No, do you know what it is though? I tend, when I try to think of people to get on, I end up just getting people that are very much like myself in the way they like are just chilled about it. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes
it's a nice antidote to Twitter. Having a nice calm conversation. We're all like, it's all right. We're going to be okay.
I think to myself, right? I know a guy who was at one point Bielsa out, and I was like, shall I get him on? But then I thought, no, because it would just be, I'd just be angry at him. Do you know what I mean? Like it's pointless. Although you should have differing views, I feel like we're all
not all views. Some of them aren't equal. Like Bielsa out is something we're talking about. Like,
yeah. John, transfers. I know you guys all stats. Well, it's more so Darren says he's not bothered with them at all, is he?
Yeah, I mean, we care about the state of the squad, right? And that's, at the end of the day, that's what the transfer window is about. It's about being able to like fluff up your squad if you need to, or move on players that you don't really need, whatever. And so for me, like when it comes to individual transfer windows, I'm sort of, I care, but I'm also caring from that perspective. So when it comes to January windows in particular, I'm kind of like, you only really use a January window if you're either worried about relegation and you think you need to bring in more quality to stave that off, which arguably we were in a position of. But as you guys have said, I don't think that's a particular danger, and I didn't think it ever was really, because we have been ticking over. So that doesn't really apply to us. And then you get these other teams who are like, Spurs are a good example of that, like a team who think, oh, we've got to get into the Champions League spot, so let's bring in a few players just to give us a little bit more scope to be able to do that, especially when
well
things
that's
start
gone for Spurs. For their transfers, Jesus.
Yeah. But for me, I always kind of think, well, that's it, and we don't really fall into either of those categories. At least the club don't seem to think that we are imminently going to be in a relegation battle, which again I kind of can concur with. And so part of me thinks, yeah, that's fine. I don't worry about the window on that basis. That doesn't mean to say I'm not worried about the state of our squad. And the issue for me is more that, like, I was worried about the state of the squad in the last window, and we didn't do anything about it. And so for me, any sort of nervousness or frustration I have about the state of the squad is sort of goes all the way back to last season, where there was gaping holes in the squad. There's obvious problems that we were going to have. We spent a lot of the window saying, this is going to come back and bite us on the arse. And lo and behold, we've had a season where it's come back and bitten us on the arse. That's not because we're particularly, perspicuous people. We're not just like looked into some kind of magic ball and seen the future. If we can see it, the club can see it. It's that obvious. And so my frustrations are more about sensible planning. So in terms of bringing someone like Aronson in, then yeah, I'm keen for that. I think Aronson is a great player. He fits as well. He's got the perfect profile. He's a pressy player who is going to generate chances through the middle, which is what we need. So I'm keen for that. The issue, I guess, the issue I have is more, if we bring him in now, then it prepares us for him, filling the system in the next 6 months, and then in the summer we're like, oh, well, there's one fewer position that we need to worry about. So. With all that said, I think you are in a compromising position a little bit as a club when you're coming in January and trying to get a player of that kind of stature who you're going to say, right, this player is going to be important to our squad for 5 years, because like we've seen, RB Salzburg are just like, one, we don't need to sell this guy. Two, we've got like important games coming up. We're trying to win the league, and you can just say, well, yeah, you're going to lose to Bayern in the Champions League, and you're going to win the league anyway. But that's not how you look at it as a club. And so you're in a situation where you're already on the back foot when it comes to negotiations. And like, how many times have we seen the club like just negotiate terribly in the last few windows? So I think the issue then becomes that you start getting into this situation where they make it very clear there's one player that they want him now. And it's a January, so you're already ramping things up, and I think that's been the issue. So we ended up with like another Ben White situation, but in January, where the club are convinced that if they throw enough money at it, it will end up turning around for them, and it hasn't worked that way. And so Yeah, I'm all for us bringing in those sorts of players, but you don't do it in January. You do it in the summer, and you have a more sensible strategy, and you have a short list of players. And when one of those clubs says, no, we're not going to get anywhere near your valuation, you quickly move on to the next one. And the issue here has been that we don't have anyone below that. Apparently, it's like, this is the player we want. It's hamstrung on negotiations, and we're not going to even end up with him. So we've not been able to move on to anyone else. So I'm sort of writing it off as a bit of a wasted a transfer window. But at the same time, like, it's a January, so we shouldn't have been expecting to do important business in that month anyway, if that makes sense.
So you don't expect any coming in at all?
Look, we could bring in someone. It depends on whether or not the club want to sort of save face or not, and they want to say that, oh well, we were looking for other targets and they just didn't match our evaluations, or what they often seem to suggest is that the other clubs were unreasonable. But I don't think that we're going to bring anyone in at this point. If Aronson falls through, who's going to markedly shift where the squad is at? So, like, why do it? Like, wait until the summer, because you just much easier to negotiate and be more sensible about it.
Like, I'd kind of like bodies in positions we're not really talking about, to be honest with you. I'd quite like an experienced reserve goalkeeper, because if Meslier gets injured, we're fucked.
Yeah, big time.
Then I'd also like another fullback, so we don't just have our right back and our left back. Like, it'd be nice if there was someone else to cover there as well, to be honest with you.
At left back, we have Junior Firpo, and then our next traditional left back is in the under-18s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
And then we've got Luke Ayling, and then Shackleton, a midfielder.
Dallas, maybe.
Or Dallas, if he's not needed elsewhere.
Yeah,
exactly. So, like, those are the positions I look at as being like, I'd like some more bodies in there. But I think you're very right about it being much easier in summer, so...
Yeah, I think that's. I remember the Cody Drama thing before I knew that he'd actually pushed the bell. But I was like, I was really... frustrated, thinking, why is Bielsa not signing X player, but then he's happy to just have one left back and one right back, because he'd let Leif Davies go out on loan, and it was really like frustrating at the time. But then when you find out Cody actually pushed for the move, then it's like, all right, well, fair enough.
What do you guys think of the state of the squad? Like, posing the question from that angle, like, do you worry about for example, we're convinced, all of us, that we're not going down this season, but how do you feel about, like, next season? How much work do you think needs to be done for that squad to be ready for another Premier League season and not be in another sort of rubbish season like we've had this season?
For me, it needs a lot. Like, I think my main worry is as well, John, and I've always said this, like, no other manager, and this is what really frustrates me when people have a go at Bielsa. No other manager is getting that squad to where it's at. Like, in my opinion, okay, we've improved it over time, but the nucleus is still that same squad that was in the Championship. And when people say, "Oh, we should get this," it drives me insane, because I do think a lot of them, I'm convinced that if Bielsa left, Dallas would go back to the Dallas that we signed under Uwe Rosler. Do you know what I mean? Like, Ayling, I don't know if Ayling ever knew that he would be a decent Premier League right back, if that makes sense. So I think he's worked wonders with it. And maybe I'm doing him a disservice, but I do think my main worry is if Bielsa called it time, there is then a massive change needed, because a new coach would say, I need a much bigger squad. I need more younger players. And
we need at least 5 players if we got a new manager. They'd want 23, wouldn't they? Like any other manager would want a 23-man squad. But yeah, like, I don't know, for next season, I don't think we're miles off. And I think, like, we do have to remember, like, it's just been a repeated theme all season, but the injuries have been mental, and you're always going to get injuries. But if we could, my God, how nice would it be to have a couple of games with Adam Forshaw next to Calvin Phillips in midfield? We've just not had that. It would totally transform the balance of our side if we can manage to get our team on the pitch. If we can get Patrick Bamford to play a full season next year, we'll be a different team. So it's signings and just getting our team back is what we need. We need a bit of both. But, like, not too many signings for me. I think, a midfielder, I'd like I say, a full-back and a reserve keeper would do me, because we're stacked at centre-back, we're stacked up top, and in wingers in forwards, I think. It's just midfield and full-backs I feel we like at.
I think, I don't know if you agree, Rocco, but I miss Samu. I miss Samu Saiz. I miss it.
Talking about rose-tinted glasses, jeez.
No,
It's the Spanish Tyler Roberts, man.
No, man. He was unbelievable.
Picking up the ball and driving forwards, then no end product. We've got plenty of players who do that.
No, he was different gravy for me. That first half of that first season under Bielsa. Just someone in that mould, though. A Pablo Hernandez, someone who can go in a
oh, God, the 21-year-old Pablo Hernandez.
That would be pretty special. What are your thoughts, Rocco?
Yeah, I agree. To be fair, I think that is the position where we need to look to improve. Whether it is Rodrigo, and I feel like Bielsa will give Rodrigo another season, but I think that number 10 is just it's a position we've never really replaced since Pablo. It's not happened for Rodrigo. Obviously, we know about Roberts. Click's been pushed up there sometimes, and he's been struggling. So I think if we could get like a top class number 10. And then obviously have Bamford back and Bamford firing. And if Bamford's not firing, we've got Gelhardt anyway, who'll be, another half year older and more experienced. And, we all think that he's the real deal. And they, like Rob said as well, cover at fullback. And, Dallas has done great. But it would be nice to have actual fullbacks covering for our fullbacks. Yeah, I think that's pretty. I don't think we're that far off. But then again, as we've said, a lot of the squad are, getting into their 30s now. So it's a bit of a funny one. Even like Ayling, Ayling's he doesn't get a lot of assists. He does fantastically well, and I feel really uncomfortable talking about upgrading these players that have done so well for us. Yeah. But moving forward, maybe down both flanks. We need Firpo to kick on. That would be a massive improvement if Firpo is the player we hope he can be, or who we think we sound. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, he's never had a run in the team. Rodrigo himself has never really had a long run in the team. It's a tough one. I suppose my worry is that we have the summer and we're still in that position where we're waiting for players to either do it or don't do it, and they don't do it, and then it's a stalled season. But at what point do you write them off? You hear people sometimes talk about, that we were complacent in the summer because we didn't replace the players that got us to 9th. And, I'd never, ever buy into that. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's amazing how much better Gianni Alioski's got since he left, isn't it?
No,
it's crazy. It's crazy. He's turned into Messi since he's moved to Saudi. Like, everyone understands, we miss Alioski. That's what's wrong. Last season, everyone's like, fucking Alioski, he's shit. Get him off. It's mad, isn't it?
True, man. He's not the answer, right? And everyone was like, get Gianni back.
Loved him, and I would have happily had him stay forever, but let's be realistic.
I think the one area we are stacked in is centre-back. Like, I look at centre-back and think, wow, we have a good future
to number
there.
6. Like, down to our 6th choice is Leo Yelder, who looks great.
Yeah.
And we've got 3 choices in each position on each side as well, which is nice. So that's pretty well provided for, I think.
Yeah, I can just imagine like Creswell and Strauch as a pair, like just for years to come. I think Oscar said to me that's a Champions League playing centre back partnership. I was like, I'll have some of that.
They'll be playing for Real Madrid though. That's
exactly. Brilliant. Right, we're almost at an hour, so before we finish, obviously we've had 6 points out of the last 3 games, Burnley, Hammers, and Newcastle. I would say a lot more tougher run, in my opinion now. The next 3 being Villa away, Everton, I think, at home, and Manchester United at home.
It's Everton away.
Hey? Is it Everton away?
Everton, yeah. First game of the season, Everton.
Right, okay. So we've got 2 away games against a resurgent Villa side with Stevie G. Obviously, Everton may have a new manager then. I pray it's Frank Lampard.
It'd be so funny.
It's been too long for you, hasn't it, mate? I know you've got this little like love-hate relationship with Frank Lampard.
I can't, not love. I can't.
To hate.
And then Manchester United, like that's. I can't wait for that one. I'm not going to lie. I cannot wait for that. But I'm hopeful that now that Ollie's gone, we won't get spanked, because Ollie, the way he set them up, just meant that they spanked us every time. So maybe with Ralph Rangnick, that might not happen. But
it's that thing we'll talk about before, where it's like sometimes, like, because of the chaos we create, sometimes worse teams do better because they're used to not having any structure and it being a bit shit. So like, I kind of thought that about Man U when they got a more structured, regimented manager in. It gives us more of a chance to break that up, rather than against Ollie when they was just like, go out and have fun, lads.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Exactly. Go on then, Rob. Start us off. How many points do you reckon we get from them three?
I reckon like 3 or 4, and probably not where we expect. You know, because you'd expect it to be Everton. That's the one we're looking at, where you'd think there's a chance there because they're in a bit of a shambles. But I just don't know. I just can't predict anything at the moment. Like, one game we're good, next game we're shit.
Yeah.
You know, we might well spank Villa, then lose to Everton, and then, you know, nudge a draw against Scum. Like, who fucking knows? I'm done predicting this Leeds team this season. I think we'll get more than enough points over the course of the season, but I can't tell you where and when.
John, you don't like predictions, do you? I'm asking the wrong man.
I don't like predictions.
Shall I ask you how all 3 games you see them going? You'll be here all night.
Give us goal scorers and minutes.
It's tough, isn't it? Because like with Villa, we've never seen Gerrard's Villa play against us, and I think I feel as though now we've been covering Leeds in the Premier League for a while. There's certain games where you know roughly how the games are going to go, and so you can see how a game would end up in a win or maybe end up in a draw or whatever. And I don't have really much of a sense with Villa, obviously, because we've not seen. I think Steven Gerrard, regardless of what you think of Steven Gerrard, his assistant manager Michael Beale is a tactical genius, and he will have watched our games and will find ways of causing us problems. So it could be the case that he comes up with a great way of playing against us. It could be a case that they get surprised by what it's like playing against the intensity of Leeds, and it doesn't work. So that one's up in the air. The Everton game, we don't even know who's going to be the manager by the time that one comes around. So it's hard to say. It's one of those ones where you should be targeting 3 points because of the situation, for sure. And then Manchester United, we've never played against Rangnick before as well. So with Rangnick, I suspect they will try and cause us problems in the way that we cause other teams problems, which is, I think, always caused us problems in the past. Like the teams who press high against us, like Southampton are a team who pressed high against us. Brighton press high against us and cause us problems. Obviously, Man City in the recent games have just press high against us. So it could be the case that if they can get their press sorted, they could cause us problems. But equally, as we've seen, Manchester United under Rangnick have been really unimpressive in terms of their possessional structures. So it could be another game where we snatch something and we're able to keep ahead of the opposition in the same way that we did in the West Ham game. So yeah, I'm with Rob. I think three or 4 points, but it could come from any iteration of those games.
I feel I'm going to ask you anyway, Rocco, but these 2 answers just made me feel so silly for asking the question in the first place.
Yeah, well,
you got Rocco. Put your balls on the line, but do a proper prediction, unlike us fans.
Don't you worry, I will. I'll come on to that. I think Everton I'm a bit worried about because it'll be the new manager's first home game, so that always scares the living life out of me. Villa, yeah, it's a tough one, but again, it might just be one that surprises us. But yeah, for sticking my neck out, I am going to say that we'll beat Man U. I think this is our game. You know, we have it once a season. You know, you get that game, don't you? And you know, it wasn't West Ham. It's coming, and it's Man U at home. We're going to beat them.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, God, I hope you're right.
Love that. It's got me going.
6-0 to Man United, right? Guaranteed.
Just I can just see, just the edit of that, like in a couple of weeks.
Narrator, it did not happen. Yeah.
Curb Your Enthusiasm theme.
I love that. Right, boys. Before we end, I'm going to give you a chance to do a bit of a plug for those that are watching. Rob, take it away, mate. Pressure.
Get on my channel, FC Mulholland. I do a weekly show called the Ellen Road Roundup where I just take the piss and and it's dead funny. I think I'll have one out in the next couple of days about all this bollocks. And get subscribed. Get on it.
Yeah, do. The links are in the description as well. So if you haven't already, please do head on over. It's easy for you to do. Drop it down, just click it, and then you go. John?
Yeah, All Stats Aren't We is a channel where we focus, like I said, on the tactics and the stats. It's not for everyone, so please don't feel guilty about not liking our stuff. But if you don't like it, please don't insult me because it hurts. But yeah, we have a Twitter channel, All Stats Aren't We, and we also have a Patreon channel. We put up a lot of bonus video analyses of games. We're running various series as well at the moment, which are good fun. And yeah, I think you enjoy them, Joe, don't you? So if that's not a recommendation, then what is?
Yeah, it broadens my footballing knowledge. Do you know what I mean? Genuinely, they see things I do not see. Do you know what I mean? And it makes me think twice. But yeah, I still don't understand what XG means. But
that's all right. No one does really.
It actually on the FM, it actually shows XG as well because I've got that again, and I'm like, oh, right there, it's on FM. Rocco, do you want to tell us about your book?
Yeah, so as we said, we've got Marcelo Bielsa versus the Damned United, which is my account of the 2 seasons leading to promotion. And then out next week is the O'Leary years. So that chats the 4 seasons at the turn of the century. Quite a story, emotional roller coaster for sure. So that's coming out next week as well. And you can catch me writing weekly for Leeds That podcast.
Nice. I'm going to get on that O'Leary book, man. That sounds great.
What did you say?
I want to get on that O'Leary book. That sounds great, man.
Yeah.
I'll give that a bash, definitely. A lot went on.
Well, Rob, the link's in the description. Mate.
Hello, so, I'll go in the description and I'll bloody order
it. So yeah, check that out and it'll take you straight to the book. Not the new one, because that's not out yet, but the old one. But I just love the title in itself. The Extraordinary Story of a Club Reborn. Love that. Because we've been reborn. Anyway,
beautiful subtitle work that.
Yeah, it is right. So thank you all for joining me as well and giving up your Wednesday evening. Everyone that's watched this, please smash a like, check out everyone's channel, and try not to be too disheartened. I've seen a lot of comments like just chill out. It's all right. Like we've got like 5 days. I know it's going to be a rough 31st of January, but is what it is. If you're expecting business, you're probably going to be disappointed. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you.